Really excited to dig into the next and final session for Automation Alley and introduce you to Becki Gallagher. She's a customer success specialist here. She is our resident Zap Queen. She plays pinball all the time. She thinks team trainings are the best because they are. You can always reach out to her, Becki at jetpackworkflow.com. And, I mentioned this a bit earlier, but in today's session, we're really going to open up and look at the nuts and bolts of Zapier integration. And she's going to highlight two zaps that you can use today. So this is a really meat and potato talk. You can open up your Jetpack Workflow account. You can jot down the workflow. But if you have questions from this talk, there's her email right there as well. I'm sure she'll be happy to connect with you. Really excited to dig into this guided walkthrough of building out your first initial zaps and a nice overview of what you can accomplish inside of Jetpack Workflow plus Zapier. Becki, I'm going to pass the baton over to you. Take it from here.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to share the same slide. So here we go. So I just realized I have it on the wrong screen, but that's okay. So hi, I am Becki. I'm a customer success specialist here at Jetpack, and I've been here for just over 2 years now. Like David said, I am the resident Zap Queen, and I do play pinball all the time. But what we are going to do now is actually take a deeper dive on a couple of zaps within Jetpack Workflow. And I'm just going to pause my share to, we're going to talk about 2 free and easy zaps to help you with managing new client onboarding. And I wanted to highlight free and easy because Zapier can be a little overwhelming sometimes. There's a lot of things you can do. And you can also get into tiers of Zapier where you do have to pay. But with these 2 zaps, these are free and they're really easy to set up. We actually have templates for them. We're going to walk through accessing a template, and we're also going to walk through building one out from scratch. The 2 that we're going to talk about here are adding in a new client into Jetpack manually will automatically create a job from templates that you have set up within your account. And then also we're going to talk about what Heather had mentioned earlier about completing a Google form, and that information will flow into Jetpack Workflow as a brand new client for you. So you don't have to manually update the client information. You can get it right from that form, and it maps right into Jetpack. And we'll look at what that all looks like with taking each piece of information from that Google form. So give me just a second to hop out of here and get into my Zapier account. Perfect. Okay, so now we are in Zapier, and this is just your dashboard in Zapier once you have logged in, set up an account. The first thing that you can do is to find our Jetpack Workflow site in Zapier, you can search for, if I could type, there we go, Jetpack Workflow, and that's going to bring you to the integrations page for Jetpack. So you can search for apps to connect. You can look at the ones that are already possible to connect. And then down below, you're going to see a few of these app templates that we already have set up for you inside of Jetpack or inside of Zapier. So we can learn more about this one that we're going to talk about first, which is creating Jetpack Workflow onboarding jobs or job for new Jetpack Workflow clients. So in this Zap, we're going to be connecting Jetpack with Jetpack. So we're not talking to an external app, we're just talking in Jetpack Workflow. So you can click the try it option right here, and this is then going to bring you to the app editor screen. Let's just go through here. Perfect. Okay, so this, when you do use the template, it's going to automatically name it for you. So Jetpack Workflow onboarding jobs for new Jetpack Workflow clients. The one thing that I want to highlight before we go any further is that you want to make sure that you have a template within your Jetpack Workflow account that you're going to want to use for this Zap. We're not going to get into building out a template here in the presentation, but in the email that goes out afterwards, there will be some how-to videos for managing your templates and creating them. And then in addition to that is actually building out a Google form, because we're not going to go into the nuts and bolts of that either. But in your Jetpack Workflow account, you have your jobs tab and your templates. And when you scroll down here, the template that I'm going to use for this Zap is new client onboarding. So I just want to make sure that I have one available in my account. We're going to go back to the Zap template here, and we're going to make sure that your Jetpack Workflow account is connected. So you can connect your Jetpack Workflow account through here just by adding a new account. Mine's already connected here. And then you're going to just make sure that both sides are connected. So since we're talking inside of Jetpack Workflow, the trigger needs to be Jetpack Workflow, which is the first option, and the action needs to be Jetpack Workflow, which is why it's asking you to connect both pieces here. So we're going to turn this on, I think. You know what? This is not what I was looking for. I'm sorry about that. This weird. So we're going to go back. I apologize. That was a little strange. We're going to just build this from scratch really quickly. I apologize for that confusion. So we're just going to go to make a zap, and we're going to turn this one off. There we go. So make a zap. When we go into make a zap, the first thing you're going to want to do is name that zap. So this zap is going to be creating onboarding jobs job with a new client added. There we go. And again, we were just talking about the trigger. So we're going to want to have our Jetpack account as the trigger. And the trigger event is going to be adding in a new client. All right. So then we're going to hit continue and make sure that our Jetpack account is mapped. There we go. And continue there. Once we do that, we have to test that Jetpack Workflow can speak to Zapier. So you always have to test the trigger. It's going to look for a client inside of my Jetpack account. And we get the little excitement there of we found a client. So we are able to move forward to starting with our action. And the action we're looking for, again, is inside of Jetpack Workflow. So we're going to connect Jetpack Workflow again. And the action that we're looking for is to create a job when a new client is added manually. So we're going to connect there. Again, we need to connect our Jetpack Workflow account. Just make sure that it is fully connected here in Zapier. And then once we do that, this is where that template comes into play. So you need to click here for choose value in the template option. And then it is going to pull the list of templates inside of your Jetpack account. It does go by numerical and then alphabetical order. Since our new client onboarding is down below, here we go. We're going to choose that as the template. We don't need to update the job name because that is going to pull from the name of the template. The client ID is the only thing that's a little tricky here in that you need to go into the client ID, go to custom here. And then once you're in custom, you have to grab this number that is associated with the client ID. This is how inside of Jetpack it knows which clients to assign these out to each time. So again, that's in the client ID option, custom, and then client ID. Once you're in there, the job manager, you can set this up to be applied to the same person every time that this app fires. Or if you leave it blank, it will just be blank and you can reassign this to a team member when it is assigned. The description will pull over from the template. And then the due date here, if you hover over this area or click, I did it again. This area for due date is where you can put in like a dynamic date. So what I'm going to put in here is next Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So every time that this app fires, I'm going to have the rest of this week and the following week to get this new client onboarding done. I'm sure some of you would want it to be done a lot quicker. I'm just going to show you this as an example. Once we finish that, we're going to go ahead and hit continue. And this is where the Zap actually has to send a test job into my Jetpack Workflow account so that we can make sure that this is actually going to work. So we're going to hit test and continue. And when we do that, come on thing, you can do it. Thinking really hard. Really, really hard. I'm going to just go ahead and hop into my Jetpack account and maybe beat the system over to the client. So when we're looking at this Zap, so yay, it was successful. It's just taking a little bit because of Zoom running on my computer. So a test job was sent to this client here, which is new client XYZ. So we're going to go ahead and check out this new client XYZ. And when we check out new client XYZ, what we should see is a new client onboarding job, ta-da, due next Friday. Look at that. So that is how you can set up the onboarding jobs to immediately create within your Jetpack account. Again, this is a free Zap that you can create yourself. The next Zap, and I always do this, but you have to actually turn it on. I always end up getting out of the Zap before turning it on. So you have to turn the Zap on so that it actually starts functioning every single time that you create a new client within your account. So turning on the Zap just means that you are saying, yes, let's do this. And we are now ready to move on to the second Zap that we're going to create, which is the Google form submission, creating a new client inside of your Jetpack account. So we're going to go back to our main page of the Zapier, of your Zapier account, and we're going to walk through the same process. So we're going to go into Make a Zap. And the trigger event here is going to be that Google form submission that, that Heather was talking about earlier. So the trigger here is going to be in Google Forms. So we're going to connect Google Forms. And the trigger event is going to be new response in spreadsheet, which Heather showed you guys that when you have a Google form, you also have a spreadsheet that comes out of that logs all of your submissions. So that's going to be the new response. Now I'm going to show you what my Google form looks like that I've set up. You all, again, will get an email with a how-to video or a how-to explanation on how to make a Google form yourself if you've never done it. But this is what mine looks like. I just have email address, company name, first and last for primary contact, phone number, and then I get into address. Also, I grab their website if they want to share it, and then I also ask what services that they're interested in. In the responses area is where that spreadsheet is going to be. So we're going to open up that spreadsheet and create it so that we're going to look at exactly how this links into your Zapier account. So there's my first response that I already put through. And then we're going to go back into Zapier to start mapping in this spreadsheet into this Zap. So we're going to hit continue here. Now, since we have our spreadsheet, it's looking for, or I'm sorry, we need to link our Google Forms account, just like we linked our Jetpack account in the last one. Again, you'll sign in if you haven't signed in before. It's just going to ask you to sign in with your Google information. And then the spreadsheet here we're looking for is this star new customer intake form. So we're going to click into choose value. And since this is the newest thing that I've created, it should be right on top and it's right there for us. And then underneath that, we need to map the specific worksheet. Since this form only has one worksheet, it's only going to bring over one option here, which makes it easy for everyone. After that, we're going to continue on, and it's going to test that trigger. Again, it needs to make sure that this system is speaking to each other. And it was able to bring in that first response from the form. We found the response. So we're going to move on down to continue. And we're going to map the action, which is creating a client inside of Jetpack Workflow. So the action event is going to be creating a client, and we're going to continue. And then again, we've got to map our Jetpack account, be sure it's all in there. And then down below that, we are actually taking the Google Sheet information and mapping it into the basic client information that you can update inside of Jetpack. So the information here is actually what the client information in Jetpack looks like. So my Google form is set up pretty simplistic, so it matches really easily. Company name is going to be, we're going to show all options so we can find your company name. There's the business name there. We're going to click into first name and we're going to choose first name. And these are all options from the Google form that you can see here. Each of these are mapping over into our client information for Jetpack Workflow, last name to last name. And if you guys have actually updated or uploaded your client information at any point in Jetpack Workflow with the spreadsheet, this process probably looks pretty simple, or I'm sorry, pretty normal for you because you've had to go through this before with the mapping. The description, I'm going to go ahead and grab the, where is it? What services are you interested in? So this actually populates on the client profile in the description area. Then we're going to grab their phone number, which I think is under primary phone number. This does take a little minute just because you do have to go through and grab each individual thing. But we're going to go with street address there. We'll get city. And you just want to make sure that every piece of this is mapped over so that every time that this is filled out, it creates the correct content inside of Jetpack. Because this information is coming right from your client, so you don't have to worry about human error with it coming in from with your team updating it or the client sending it wrong in a different way. This is all just coming from them straight from your Google form. There's our company website. And we don't need to worry about tags because that's internal in Jetpack Workflow. And we're not going to worry about QuickBooks ID either because we are not integrated with QuickBooks personally. So we're going to continue here. Once we continue, I forgot to name this app, which I do often as well. So this is going to be Google Form Response Creates Jetpack Client. There we go. So now we're going to test this data and we're going to send this client into Jetpack Workflow from the response that I've created. So it was created. So we're going to go into our Jetpack account, and I just think this app is so cool because it's fully automated. You don't need to get the information from the customer. It comes straight to you. And look at that, Jackson Bookkeeping, that quick is already in my Jetpack Workflow account. When we're going to click into it, you're going to see all of that information mapped over. So our tax and bookkeeping came through in the description, so you know automatically what that customer is looking for. We've got the name and all of their contact information already in the account. There are other apps that you can create two-steppers. I think that Heather might have mentioned as well, where when you fill out a Google form, it creates a client in Jetpack, and then it also assigns jobs. We're not getting into that because we are pretty much at time, but Jetpack and Zapier integrations are just super fun, and it really will help you get some automation within your firm and help you to just take out some of that human error that just happens inherently. The last thing that I just want to talk about really quickly is thank you for your time. I appreciate you all being here. This conference has been a blast. But we are looking for some feedback about what you'd like to see Jetpack Workflow triggers and actions more than we already have now. We'd love to know what you actually would like to see as some how-to videos, because I am crafting a Jetpack Workflow University Zapier certification course. We do have some in mind already that we're going to be building out, but you all can go to this jetpackworkflow.com/Zapier survey. And there it is. And you all can go ahead and fill that out and let me know what you'd like to see in that certification course, because we are building this from your feedback. So thank you to Heather, Gabe, Ryan for all of the talk about Zapier and just automation in general. And I will hand it back to